The rooftop of the Blackstone Meridian Hotel should have been Dominic Vale's greatest triumph. Instead, when the elevator doors opened and Clara Mensah stepped out beside the most dangerous man in Seoul, his billion-dollar empire began its final countdown. 4 years ago, he erased her name from the company she built. Tonight, she came to reclaim everything he stole, and the truth she brought with her would destroy him in front of the entire world. If you want to see how a stolen empire burns to the ground, stay until the very end, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rooftop smelled like expensive cologne and desperation. Dominic Vale moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands that belonged to senators, tech moguls, and venture capitalists who controlled more money than most countries. The Blackstone Meridian's 53rd floor offered a view of Manhattan that made grown men feel invincible. And tonight, surrounded by crystal champagne flutes and string quartet music, Dominic felt exactly that way. Untouchable. He adjusted his Patek Philippe and smiled at a Bloomberg journalist who wanted a quote about Novolux Systems' upcoming IPO. The number being whispered around Wall Street was $12 billion. $12 billion for a company he supposedly built from nothing in a garage 7 years ago. The myth tasted sweeter every time he repeated it. "Dominic, congratulations on another incredible quarter," Senator Harris said, gripping his shoulder like they were old friends. They weren't, but money made everyone family, eventually. "Thank you, Senator, just trying to build something that matters." The humility in his voice was perfect. He'd practiced it for years. Across the rooftop, his wife Amber laughed with a group of socialites near the ice sculpture, some abstract nonsense that cost more than a car. She looked beautiful in that effortless way only money could buy. Blonde hair swept back, diamond earrings catching the city lights, skin that had never known real struggle. She caught his eye and raised her glass. He raised his back. Perfect couple, perfect night, perfect life. Then Marcus, his head of security, appeared beside him. "Sir, we have a situation." Dominic's smile didn't falter. Never let them see concern. "What kind of situation?" "Someone just cleared security who wasn't on the guest list." "Then why the hell did security let them up?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Because the clearance came from someone higher than us. Someone we can't refuse." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Who?" Before Marcus could answer, the elevator chimed. That soft mechanical sound shouldn't have carried across a rooftop filled with 200 people, live music, and Manhattan traffic humming 53 floors below. But somehow, everyone heard it. The conversations didn't stop immediately. They died slowly, like watching dominoes fall in reverse. First, the people nearest the elevator fell silent. Then the silence spread outward like a shockwave, killing laughter and small talk and the comfortable illusion that this was just another elite party in a city full of them. The string quartet stopped mid-measure. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Dominic turned toward the elevator, and his entire world tilted sideways. The doors opened. Clara Mensah stepped out first. She wore a dark emerald gown that moved like water against the night air, elegant and controlled in a way that made every other woman on the rooftop look like they were trying too hard. Her hair was shorter than he remembered, cut sharp just above her shoulders, and her dark skin caught the golden lights in a way that made her look carved from something ancient and unbreakable. But it was her eyes that stopped his heart. Calm, cold, focused. The eyes of someone who had spent 4 years planning this exact moment. Beside her stood a man Dominic had only seen in intelligence briefings and whispered conversations between people who understood how power actually worked in Asia. Kang Min-jae. The Korean businessman, though that word didn't even begin to cover what he actually was, stood nearly 6'2", dressed in a black suit so perfectly tailored it looked like a weapon. His face was unreadable, carved from stone and discipline, with eyes that measured everything and revealed nothing. Dominic had heard the stories. Everyone had. Kang Min-jae controlled financial empires that made legitimate billionaires look poor. He brokered deals between governments and criminal organizations with the same indifference. His network stretched from Seoul to Singapore to Sao Paulo, built on violence, intelligence, and an understanding of human nature so precise it bordered on supernatural. Men like Senator Harris pretended to make laws. Men like Kang Min-jae decided which laws actually mattered. And now he stood on Dominic's rooftop with Clara Mensah on his arm like they owned the entire city. Dominic's throat went dry. Around the rooftop, reactions rippled through the crowd. Some people recognized Clara from the early Novolux days before Dominic erased her from the story. Others recognized Kang and immediately found reasons to be somewhere else. But nobody moved toward the elevator. Nobody welcomed them. Fear had a smell, Dominic realized. It smelled like champagne going warm in crystal glasses nobody remembered they were holding. Clara's gaze swept across the rooftop until it landed on him, and she smiled. Not warm, not cruel, just certain. Dominic forced his legs to move. He couldn't show weakness, not here, not in front of everyone who mattered. He crossed the rooftop with Amber materializing beside him, her hand slipping through his arm more for her own stability than his. "Clara," Dominic said, and hated how his voice sounded. Too tight, too careful. "I wasn't expecting you." "Of course you weren't," Kang Min-jae said quietly. His voice carried the kind of calm that made Dominic's spine turn to ice. This wasn't a man who raised his voice because he never needed to. When Kang Min-jae spoke, people either listened or disappeared. "Mr. Kang," Dominic tried, extending his hand. "It's an honor." "No, it isn't." Kang didn't shake his hand. The rejection landed like a slap across the face in front of 200 witnesses. Dominic lowered his hand slowly, feeling Amber's grip tighten on his arm. Clara hadn't said a word yet. She just stood there, radiating a composure that made Dominic feel like he was the one who didn't belong on his own rooftop. "Clara, I don't know what you think you're doing here, but this is my birthday celebration. If you wanted to reconnect, you could have called—" "Stop talking," Kang said. Dominic's mouth closed. The crowd had formed a loose circle around them now, sensing blood in the water. Phones appeared in hands. Cameras angled for better shots. Nobody pretended to look away anymore. Kang raised one hand toward the DJ booth. The gesture was small, minimal, but the music died instantly. Then he looked toward the AV crew managing the massive LED screen behind the rooftop stage where Dominic had planned to give a speech later about innovation and the American dream and all the other lies that made good press. The screen flickered to life. "What are you doing?" Dominic demanded. Kang ignored him completely. The first image appeared on the screen. Source code. Lines and lines of machine learning architecture written in a style so distinct, so mathematically elegant, that anyone who understood advanced AI development would recognize it immediately. At the bottom of the screen, a timestamp, 7 years ago. The next image showed an internal Novolux email. Dominic's name in the sender field. The recipient, Clara Mensa, lead AI architect. The message was short. "Clara, investors want another demo tomorrow. Can you have the predictive engine ready? They're calling you the real brain behind this whole operation. Don't make me look stupid." "D." Dominic's stomach dropped into his shoes. "Where did you get that?" His voice came out strangled. Clara finally spoke. "I kept everything." Her voice was exactly how he remembered it. Measured, intelligent. But underneath the calm was something harder now. Something that had been forged in the 4 years since he threw her away like garbage. More images filled the screen, architectural diagrams in Clara's handwriting, design documents with her digital signature embedded in the metadata. Team photos from the early days where Clara stood at the center of every technical discussion, while Dominic smiled for cameras in the background. Then came the legal documents. The restructuring paperwork Dominic buried inside a maze of corporate filings 3 months before he handed Clara the divorce papers. Page after page of careful legal language that systematically erased her name from Novolux's founding team, transferred her equity to shell companies Dominic controlled, and rewrote history to make him the sole visionary behind the company's revolutionary AI platform. The crowd's whispers turned into something uglier. Board members Dominic had worked with for years stared at the screen with expressions shifting from confusion to understanding to horror. Senator Harris quietly backed away. Journalists moved closer. "This is fabricated," Dominic tried, but even he could hear how pathetic it sounded. "Clara's upset about the divorce. She's trying to rewrite—" "Show them the signature," Clara said softly. Kang nodded toward the AV team. The screen changed again. This time it showed something that made every engineer in the crowd suck in a breath. The original Novolux source code, the revolutionary predictive engine that made the company worth billions, appeared on screen with a section highlighted. Deep inside the recursive logic structures was a pattern. Not random, not accidental, intentional. A cryptographic signature so mathematically sophisticated that it could only have been designed by someone who understood AI architecture at a level most engineers would never reach. Clara's signature, embedded like DNA inside the system that made Dominic rich. That pattern appears in every core module written before Clara left the company, Kang explained to the crowd with the patience of a professor teaching children. After she disappeared, the signature vanishes completely. The quality of the engineering drops. Updates become derivative. He turned to look at Dominic. Because the real architect was gone. The rooftop erupted. Questions fired from every direction. Cameras flashed like lightning. Board members shouted into phones. Amber released Dominic's arm and stepped back like he was radioactive. That small movement, his own wife retreating from him, hurt more than anything on the screen. "You stole her work," someone shouted from the crowd. "He stole the entire company," someone else corrected. Dominic spun toward Clara, rage and panic twisting his face into something ugly. "You signed the paperwork," he hissed. "You agreed to the terms. You took the settlement and walked away. You don't get to come back 4 years later, and—" "I signed because I wanted to survive," Clara cut him off. Her voice stayed level, but something dangerous flickered behind her eyes. "You made sure I had no leverage, no lawyer who would go against your legal team, no choice except to disappear or be destroyed in court. So I signed. I walked away. I let you have your story." She took one step closer. "But I never stopped being the person who built Novolux. And you never stopped being the person who stole it." Kang placed one hand lightly on Clara's shoulder. Not possessive. Protective. "Dominic Vale built an empire by erasing the woman who made it possible," Kang said, addressing the crowd now like he was delivering a eulogy. "Tonight, the world learns the difference between a visionary and a thief." Dominic felt everything collapsing. His marriage, his reputation, his company, his entire carefully constructed reality fracturing into 1,000 pieces in front of everyone who mattered. "This isn't over," he managed. Kang smiled for the first time. It was the most terrifying thing Dominic had ever seen. "Yes," Kang said quietly. "It is." Then he turned toward Clara, cupped her face with one hand, and kissed her slowly beneath the Manhattan skyline while 200 people watched in stunned silence. Not a performance, a promise. When they finally pulled apart, Clara looked at Dominic one last time. No anger, no hatred, just peace, because the truth was finally free, and nothing Dominic said or did or paid for would ever bury it again. The crowd devoured him after that. Journalists surrounded Dominic like sharks who tasted blood. Board members formed emergency huddles in corners, already calculating how to distance themselves from the scandal. Investors made phone calls that would tank Novolux's stock price before the markets even opened. Marcus appeared at Dominic's elbow. "Sir, we need to get you out of here." But there was nowhere to go. The elevator doors opened again, and this time it wasn't guests arriving. Federal agents in dark suits stepped onto the rooftop. Behind them came a woman Dominic recognized from SEC enforcement briefings. She carried a leather portfolio and an expression that said she'd been waiting for this moment for months. "Dominic Vale," she said calmly, "we have questions about intellectual property theft, securities fraud, and falsified corporate filings. You're welcome to answer them here or downtown. Your choice." The rooftop fell silent again. Dominic looked around desperately for support, for allies, for anyone who would stand beside him the way he'd always assumed they would. But Amber had disappeared into the crowd. Senator Harris was already on his phone, probably calling his publicist. The board members wouldn't make eye contact. He was alone, completely, utterly alone. And across the rooftop, Clara stood beside Kong Min-jae, watching his world burn with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd spent 4 years building a weapon specifically designed to destroy him. Dominic's legs felt weak. I need my lawyer." "That's fine," the SEC agent said. "You can call from the office." She gestured toward the elevator. Dominic walked toward it on shaking legs, passing through a crowd that had celebrated him 20 minutes ago and now looked at him like he was diseased. Just before the elevator doors closed, he looked back one final time. Clara stood at the rooftop railing overlooking Manhattan, the city lights reflecting in her dark eyes while Kang spoke quietly into her ear. She looked free. She looked powerful. She looked like everything Dominic pretended to be but never actually was. And as the elevator descended, carrying him away from the empire he stole and the life he built on lies, Dominic realized something terrible. Clara Mensa didn't need revenge. She just needed the truth to catch up. And now it finally had. Kick. The elevator ride felt like falling, 53 floors stretched into infinity. Marcus stood beside Dominic in uncomfortable silence, not even pretending to offer reassurance. The two federal agents flanked them, professional and unmoved by the complete destruction of a man's life happening 6 feet away. Dominic's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts, calls, news alerts. The story was already spreading faster than fire. Social media had exploded with clips from the rooftop. Hashtag Novolux scandal was trending. Tech blogs were publishing think pieces about intellectual theft and the erasure of women in Silicon Valley. Claire's name was everywhere. His name was everywhere. But only one of them was being called a genius. The lobby of the Blackstone Meridian looked surreal at ground level, all marble and gold fixtures that suddenly felt like a movie set. Wealthy people in expensive clothes pretended not to stare as federal agents escorted Dominic Vale toward a black SUV idling at the curb. Outside, the New York night pressed against the glass doors like a living thing. Camera flashes erupted the moment he stepped onto the sidewalk. Reporters screamed questions he couldn't hear over the blood pounding in his ears. How long had he known Clara wrote the code? When did the affair end? Was the IPO based on fraud? Did his wife know? That last question hit different. Did Amber know? Of course she didn't. Amber knew shopping districts and charity galas and which celebrities were sleeping with whom. She knew his schedule and his favorite scotch and how to smile for cameras. But she never knew him. Not really. The only person who ever truly knew Dominic Vale was currently standing on a rooftop 53 floors above, watching his empire collapse with the calm satisfaction of an architect demolishing a building she designed. The SUV door closed. The world went quiet. Just him, two federal agents, and the leather interior of a government vehicle that smelled like old coffee and broken lives. For what it's worth, one of the agents said as they pulled into traffic, we've been building this case for 8 months. Someone sent us everything: documentation, source code analysis, financial records, even testimony from Novolux employees who witnessed what happened. Dominic stared out the window. Who sent it? The agent smiled slightly. Does it matter? It didn't. He already knew. Clara Mensah wasn't the type to leave anything to chance. She'd spent 4 years preparing for tonight. 4 years documenting every lie, every theft, every crime Dominic committed to erase her existence. She hadn't come for revenge. She'd come with evidence. And there was no charm, no story, no amount of money that could argue with evidence that precise. The SUV turned toward Federal Plaza. Behind them, Manhattan glittered like nothing had happened. Because to the city, nothing had. One billionaire's empire burning to the ground was just Tuesday in New York. But to Dominic, it was the end of everything. Back on the rooftop, the crowd had thinned considerably. Board members fled to emergency meetings. Investors called their lawyers. Journalists raced to file stories before their competitors. Within an hour, the Blackstone Meridian's 53rd floor looked like the aftermath of a battle nobody won. Except Clara. She stood at the railing, alone now, staring out at the city that tried to erase her. The wind pulled at her emerald dress. The skyline stretched endlessly in every direction. 1,000,000 lights representing 1,000,000 lives that would wake up tomorrow to headlines about Dominic Vale's fall from grace. None of them would care about her. Not really. She'd be a footnote. The wrong Deck's wife, the stolen genius. A cautionary tale people would discuss at conferences about women in tech before moving on to the next scandal. And Clara found she didn't care. Because she didn't do this for recognition. She did it because the truth mattered more than comfort. Footsteps approached from behind. She didn't turn around. They're gone, Kang Min-jae said quietly, moving to stand beside her at the railing. Federal agents, journalists, everyone who wanted a piece of the story. Good. Novolux stock is already dropping in after-hours trading. The board will force him out by morning. The SEC will freeze his assets pending investigation. I know. Silence settled between them. Not awkward, just present. Finally, Kang spoke again. Most people spend their entire lives demanding recognition for their work. You rebuilt yourself without needing anyone to watch. Clara's lips curved slightly. I didn't rebuild for recognition. I rebuilt so nobody could ever own me again. Kang studied her face in profile, the sharp intelligence in her eyes, the set of her jaw, the way she held herself like someone who'd walked through fire and come out forged instead of broken. What happens now? He asked. Now? Clara turned to look at him fully. Now I go back to my actual company, the one I built myself. The one nobody can take from me because it exists in my name, on my terms, with my signature in every line of code. And Novolux? She shrugged. Let it burn, or let the board try to salvage what's left. I don't care. I already have what I need. Kang reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim black card. Nothing on it except a private number embossed in silver and a company name she didn't recognize. My network moves trillions of dollars every year, he said, handing her the card. Most of it needs exactly the kind of predictive architecture you designed. Not stolen, not copied, the real thing. Clara studied the card. You want to hire me? No. He moved closer, and the temperature seemed to shift. I want to build something with you. Not above you. Not instead of you. Beside you. For the first time in years, Clara felt something other than anger or determination or the cold satisfaction of watching justice finally arrive. She felt possibility. Why? She asked quietly. Kang's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something almost human. Because power without truth is just theft with better marketing. And I'm tired of surrounding myself with thieves. Clara looked down at the card again, then back at the skyline. Somewhere in the city below, Dominic Vale sat in a federal building watching his entire life dismantle itself in real time. Somewhere else, Amber was probably calling divorce lawyers and publicists. And here, on a rooftop that should have been Dominic's greatest triumph, Clara Mensah stood beside a man who controlled empires and made governments nervous, holding an invitation to build something even bigger than Novolux, something nobody could ever steal. She slipped the card into her clutch. I'll think about it, she said. Kang smiled slightly. That's all I ask. He moved closer and kissed her again, slower this time. Not for cameras or crowds or proof, just for them. When they pulled apart, Clara rested her forehead against his. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing the signature in the code. For finding me. For believing the truth mattered more than the story everyone wanted to believe. Kang's hand came up to cup her face. The truth always matters more, he said quietly. Even when it's inconvenient. They stood like that for a long time. Two people who understood power and violence and the cost of survival, finding something unexpected in each other. Not love. Not yet. But the foundation for it. And as the New York night deepened around them and the city continued its relentless indifference to individual tragedy, Clara felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. Not the desperate kind that clings to impossible outcomes, the real kind. The kind built on evidence, capability, and the absolute certainty that she would never again let someone else define her worth. Dominic Vale stole her company, but he never touched what actually mattered, her mind, her skill, her ability to build empires from nothing but intelligence and code. That was hers. Always had been. And now, finally, the whole world knew it. The federal building smelled like disinfectant and fear. Dominic sat in an interrogation room that looked exactly like every cop show he'd ever seen. Gray walls, metal table, chairs bolted to the floor, and a mirror that wasn't fooling anyone. He knew people watched from the other side, probably recording everything, waiting for him to say something stupid. His lawyer still hadn't arrived. 3 hours since they brought him in, and Gerald Morrison, the man Dominic paid $40,000 a month to make problems disappear, was apparently stuck in traffic. Bullshit. Gerald was abandoning ship like everyone else. The door opened. The SEC agent from the rooftop entered with a thick folder and the expression of someone who'd been waiting their entire career for this exact moment. Mr. Vale, she said, sitting across from him, I'm Agent Patricia Chen. We have a lot to discuss. Dominic leaned back in his chair, trying to project confidence his body didn't feel. I'm not saying anything until my lawyer gets here. That's your right. Chen opened the folder. But I thought you'd want to know what we already have before you decide how cooperative you want to be. She spread documents across the table like playing cards, source code analyses, financial records, email chains, testimony transcripts from former Novolux employees who watched Dominic systematically erase Clara from the company she built. We've been building this case for 8 months, Chen continued. Someone provided us with documentation so thorough, so meticulously organized, that we barely had to investigate. They did our job for us. Dominic's jaw tightened. Clara. Dr. Mensah was very helpful, yes, but she wasn't our only source. Chen pulled out another stack of papers. Turns out when you spend years treating people like they're disposable, some of them remember. Your former CTO gave us internal communications showing you knew Clara designed the entire predictive engine. Your VP of engineering confirmed she wrote every core module. Even your assistant from 2019 testified that you instructed her to remove Clara's name from press releases and replace it with yours. She leaned forward. You didn't just steal intellectual property, Mr. Vale. You orchestrated a systematic fraud that deceived investors, shareholders, and the public for 4 years. The SEC takes that very seriously. Dominic felt sweat gathering at his collar. I built Novolux. I raised the money. I made the deals. Clara wrote code, yes, but I made the company successful. Clara wrote the code that made the company possible, Chen interrupted. Everything else was just packaging. And according to Delaware corporate law, systematically removing a co-founder's equity through fraudulent restructuring while they're still contributing intellectual property constitutes theft, not a civil dispute. Criminal theft. The word hung in the air like a blade. How long? Dominic asked quietly. How long what? If this goes to trial, if you get a conviction, how long? Chen didn't smile, but something close to satisfaction crossed her face. Securities fraud carries up to 20 years. Add the conspiracy charges, the obstruction we'll probably find once we dig deeper into your financials, and you're looking at spending most of your 50s in federal prison. Dominic's hands started shaking. He pressed them flat against the table to make it stop. There's another option, Chen said. Hope flared stupidly in his chest. What option? Full cooperation. You testify about everyone involved in the restructuring, your lawyers, your board members, anyone who helped you bury Clara's contributions. You allocate her proper equity share retroactively. You publicly acknowledge the fraud. She paused. And maybe, we recommend a reduced sentence. Reduced to what? 5 to 7 years. With good behavior, you could be out in 4. 4 years. 4 years in prison for building an empire everyone celebrated until tonight. Dominic looked down at the documents spread across the table. His entire life reduced to evidence in a federal case. Every email, every decision, every lie he told himself about deserving Clara's work, all of it laid out like an autopsy. I need to think. You have 24 hours, Chen said, standing. After that, the offer disappears, and we proceed to indictment. She gathered the documents and walked toward the door. Agent Chen? She paused. Clara, Dr. Mensah. Did she ask for this? The criminal charges? Chen looked back at him with something almost like pity. Dr. Mensah didn't ask for anything except the truth. We're the ones who decided that truth required consequences. The door closed. And Dominic sat alone in the interrogation room, finally understanding that Clara hadn't destroyed him out of revenge. She'd simply stopped protecting him from himself. Across the city, Clara stood in her hotel suite staring at her phone. 47 missed calls. Texts from journalists, former colleagues, venture capitalists who ignored her for 4 years and suddenly wanted to reconnect. Even her mother called from Atlanta, voice tight with worry and pride and confusion. Clara ignored all of it. She powered the phone down and dropped it on the bed. The Plaza Suite was excessive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, furniture that cost more than most people's cars, a marble bathroom bigger than her first apartment. Kang had arranged it without asking, the same way he arranged the security team waiting in the hallway, and the lawyer on retainer in case Dominic tried anything desperate. Clara walked to the window. The city looked different from up here. Cleaner, more organized, like someone had designed it instead of letting it grow wild. She pressed her palm against the glass. It was cold. Behind her, the suite door opened. She didn't turn around. She already knew his footsteps. Kang Min-jae moved into the room with the quiet efficiency of someone who spent his life entering spaces where he wasn't supposed to be. The security team swept the suite twice, he said. No devices, no surveillance. You're safe. I know. He came to stand beside her at the window. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. How are you feeling? He asked finally. Clara laughed, but it came out wrong. Brittle. I don't know. I spent 4 years imagining this moment, what it would feel like to watch Dominic's world collapse. I thought I'd feel satisfied, vindicated. And instead, she turned to look at him. Empty. Kang's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. That's normal, is it? Revenge rarely feels the way people expect. They imagine relief, closure. Instead, they usually just feel tired. Clara studied his face. You sound like you know from experience. I do. He didn't elaborate. That was one thing Clara appreciated about Kang Min-jae. He never over-explained, never performed vulnerability or pretended to be something he wasn't. He existed in the world exactly as he was, and if people didn't like it, that was their problem. What happens now? Clara asked. That depends on what you want. I want to go home. Kang nodded slowly. Back to Georgia? Back to my actual life, my company, my work. She gestured toward the window. Tonight, this was necessary. But it's not who I am. I'm not someone who destroys people at parties. You didn't destroy him, Kang said quietly. You just stopped letting him hide. Clara's throat tightened. She turned back to the window before he could see her face. I need to ask you something, she said. Ask. Why did you help me? You could have used what you found to leverage Dominic, to force better terms on the licensing deal, to gain control of Novolux. Instead, you gave me everything and walked away from billions of dollars. Silence stretched between them. When Kang finally spoke, his voice carried weight. 20 years ago, someone stole something from me. Not money, not property. Something more important. Clara waited. My sister designed a software security protocol that revolutionized banking in South Korea. She was brilliant. Probably the smartest person I've ever known. His jaw tightened. Her business partner took credit for her work. When she tried to fight back, he destroyed her reputation, called her unstable, jealous, bitter. What happened to her? She killed herself 3 months later. The words landed like stones in dark water. Clara turned to face him fully. Kang's expression remained controlled, but pain lived behind his eyes, old pain, the kind that never really healed. I spent years trying to prove what he did, Kang continued, but by the time I had evidence, he'd already sold the company and retired. The truth didn't matter anymore. Everyone had moved on. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just understand why I called you when I found that signature in Novolux's code. He met her gaze directly. I couldn't save my sister, but I could make sure you didn't disappear the same way. Something cracked open in Clara's chest. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Kang stiffened, clearly not someone accustomed to being touched without warning, but after a moment his arms came up to hold her back. They stood like that while Manhattan glittered outside the window, and the weight of their separate histories pressed against each other in the quiet. Thank you, Clara whispered against his shoulder. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. When they finally pulled apart, Clara's eyes were wet. Kang reached up and wiped her cheek with his thumb. The gesture was so unexpected, so gentle from a man whose reputation was built on violence, that Clara almost started crying harder. What do you need? He asked. Time. Space to process all of this without cameras and journalists and federal agents. Done. I'll have a car take you to the airport in the morning. Private jet to Atlanta. Security until you're home. Clara shook her head. I don't need security. Yes, you do. Dominic's desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. He won't. He already tried, Kang interrupted. Clara froze. What? 2 hours ago, someone matching Dominic's description attempted to access your hotel floor. Security stopped him before he reached the elevator. Cold fear washed through her. You're sure it was him? The cameras caught his face. He used a fake name, but it was definitely Dominic Vale. Clara's hands started shaking. What did he want? I don't know. He left when security confronted him. But Clara... Kang gripped her shoulders gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. Dominic just lost everything. His company, his reputation, his freedom. Men like him don't accept loss gracefully. They lash out. They blame everyone except themselves. You think he's dangerous? I think he's cornered, and cornered animals bite. Clara pulled away and walked back to the window, arms wrapped around herself. Below, Central Park stretched dark and endless. Somewhere in the city, Dominic was probably planning his next move. Maybe convincing himself this was all a misunderstanding. Maybe already crafting the story he'd tell to claw back some dignity. Or maybe Kang was right. Maybe Dominic was planning something worse. I won't let him hurt you, Kang said quietly. Clara turned. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. The certainty in his voice should have been arrogant. Instead, it just sounded like fact. Kang Min-jae didn't make promises he couldn't keep. Stay here tonight, he continued. Security outside your door. Tomorrow we get you home safely. After that, you decide what happens next. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to insist she didn't need protection, that she'd handled worse than Dominic Vale, that she wasn't some damsel who needed saving. But she was also exhausted and scared and smart enough to know when accepting help was survival, not weakness. Okay, she said quietly. Kang nodded. He moved toward the door, then paused. Clara? Yeah? You didn't just stop him tonight. You showed every other woman whose work got stolen that fighting back is possible, that the truth can win. Sometimes, Clara said. Not always. No, Kang agreed. Not always. But tonight it did. And that matters. He left before she could respond. The door closed with a soft click, and Clara stood alone in a hotel suite that cost more per night than most people earned in a month, staring out at a city that had tried to erase her and failed. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she just felt hunted. Look, Dominic Vale was not a violent man. He'd never hit anyone, never even raised his fist in anger. But standing outside the plaza at 3 a.m, watching Clara's hotel window glow 40 floors above, he understood for the first time in his life why people snapped, why betrayal turned into obsession, why losing everything made rationality disappear. The security guard had stopped him 2 hours ago when he tried to reach her floor using a fake reservation. Dominic had retreated, but he hadn't left. He couldn't leave. Not until Clara understood what she'd done. Not until she heard his side. His phone buzzed. Amber. He declined the call. She'd been trying to reach him since the rooftop, probably to discuss divorce terms or beg him not to drag her name through the scandal, as if she ever loved him for anything except his bank account and social status. Another call came through. His mother this time. He declined that one too. Everyone wanted explanations, apologies, assurances that the man they thought they knew still existed somewhere beneath the wreckage. But Dominic didn't have explanations that made sense anymore, because deep down, in a place he never let himself examine too closely, he knew Clara was right. He did steal her work. He did erase her systematically from Novolux. He did build his entire empire on the foundation of her brilliance while pretending he was the genius. But that wasn't the whole story. It couldn't be, because Dominic had worked his ass off for Novolux. He'd sacrificed relationships, sleep, health. He'd pitched to hundreds of investors, endured rejections that would have broken weaker men, built partnerships that required political skill Clara never possessed. The company needed both of them. So why did Clara get to rewrite history like she built everything alone? Why did he have to be the villain? Movement caught his eye. A black SUV pulled up to the plaza's entrance. The door opened and Kang Min-jae stepped out, moving with the calm efficiency of someone who'd never questioned his right to exist in any space. Rage flooded Dominic's chest. This was the man who destroyed him, not Clara. Kang. Clara might have kept the evidence, but Kang weaponized it. Kang turned a private dispute into a public execution. Kang kissed her on that rooftop like he was planting a flag on conquered territory. Before Dominic fully decided to move, his legs were already carrying him forward. Kang! The Korean businessman turned slowly. His security detail materialized from nowhere. 2 men in dark suits who moved like violence was their native language. But Kang raised one hand. They stopped. Mr. Vale, Kang said calmly, you should go home. You destroyed my life. No, you destroyed your own life. I just documented it. Dominic moved closer, close enough to smell expensive cologne and something underneath it. Gunpowder, maybe. Or just the scent of someone who'd killed before and would do it again without hesitation. You don't know what you've done, Dominic said. His voice came out ragged. Novolux employs 4,000 people. Families depend on that company. Technologies we're developing could change the world. And you just burned it down because Clara couldn't handle rejection. Kang's expression didn't change, but something cold entered his eyes. Is that what you tell yourself? That Clara couldn't handle rejection? She signed the papers. She took the settlement. She agreed to walk away. She signed because you made sure she had no other choice, because your lawyers outnumbered hers 50-1, because fighting you meant bankruptcy. Kang stepped closer. Now they were almost nose to nose. You gave her a choice between survival and justice, Kang continued quietly. She chose survival. That doesn't make the theft disappear. I built that company. You stole that company. The words came out flat, factual. Dominic's hands curled into fists. You have no idea what it takes to build something from nothing. To sacrifice everything for a vision. Clara's brilliant, yes, but brilliance without execution is just theory. I made Novolux real. I made it matter. And you made sure history forgot the woman who actually designed it. Because investors don't fund women technologists, Dominic shouted. Because the world is unfair and broken, and if I'd been honest about who built the engine, we never would have gotten past Series A. I did what I had to do to make Novolux successful. Silence fell between them. Kang studied Dominic's face like he was looking at something pathetic. You're right, Kang said finally. The world is unfair. Investors are biased. Women technologists get erased constantly. He leaned in close. But that didn't give you the right to participate in the erasure. That just makes you part of the problem. Dominic felt something breaking inside his chest. She's going to destroy me. She already did. I could go to prison. You should go to prison. For what? For being practical? For understanding how the world actually works? Kang's jaw tightened. For stealing, for fraud, for systematically destroying a woman's career to protect your own ego. He turned to walk away. Dominic grabbed his arm. The security detail moved instantly, weapons appearing in hands that had been empty a second before, but Kang stopped them again with a single gesture. He looked down at Dominic's hand on his sleeve, then back up at Dominic's face. Remove your hand, Kang said quietly. There was no threat in his voice, just certainty. Dominic let go. Kang adjusted his sleeve carefully, smoothing imaginary wrinkles. Go home, Mr. Vale. Get a good lawyer. Hope the SEC accepts your cooperation. And stay away from Clara. Or what? The question came out before Dominic could stop it. Kang smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Dominic had ever seen. Or I stop being civilized about this. He walked into the plaza without looking back. His security detail followed, leaving Dominic standing alone on the sidewalk while Manhattan hummed indifferently around him. And for the first time since the rooftop, Dominic understood he wasn't just losing his company or his reputation. He was losing his freedom, his future, everything. Because Clara Mensah hadn't just exposed his lies. She'd aligned herself with someone who could destroy people as easily as breathing. And Dominic, charming, brilliant, beloved Dominic Vale, had absolutely no weapon that could fight back against that busk. Morning came too fast. Clara woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the realization that yesterday actually happened. The rooftop. The evidence. Dominic's face as his world collapsed. She sat up slowly, every muscle aching like she'd run a marathon. Her phone showed 83 new notifications. She ignored them all and walked to the bathroom. The shower was the kind of excessive luxury only five-star hotels provided. Rainfall head, heated floors, products that probably cost more than her monthly car payment. Clara stood underwater, hot enough to hurt, trying to wash away the residue of 4 years spent planning revenge. Except it wasn't revenge. She kept telling herself that. It was justice. Truth. Setting the record straight. But standing alone in the steam, Clara had to admit something she'd never said aloud. Part of her wanted Dominic to suffer. Not just lose, not just get caught. Suffer. The same way she suffered when he erased her name from the company she built. The same way she suffered through the divorce, the NDA, the years of watching him celebrate achievements that belonged to her. And last night, watching him stand on that rooftop while his empire burned, Clara felt something dark and satisfied curl in her chest. She'd wanted it. Maybe she still wanted it. That realization sat heavy in her stomach while she dried off and got dressed. A knock came at the suite door. Clara checked the peephole. Kang stood in the hallway with coffee and what looked like breakfast from somewhere expensive. She opened the door. "Morning," he said. "Morning?" He walked past her and set the food on the table near the window. "I brought fuel. We have a long day ahead." Clara sat down slowly. The breakfast was perfect. Fresh fruit, pastries that probably came from some French bakery, coffee that smelled like it cost $40 a cup. She didn't touch any of it. "I need to tell you something," she said. Kang poured coffee into 2 cups and slid one toward her. "I'm listening." "Last night, when Dominic's world fell apart," she stopped. Kang waited. "I enjoyed it," Clara finished quietly, watching him lose everything, seeing his wife walk away, knowing he'd probably go to prison. I know I'm supposed to feel conflicted or guilty or like the better person, but I don't. I just feel satisfied. She looked up. "Does that make me a terrible person?" Kang took a sip of his coffee. No, he said simply. How can you be sure? Because terrible people don't question whether they're terrible. They just act. Clara picked up her coffee but didn't drink it. My whole life I've tried to be good, ethical, the person who does the right thing even when it's hard. But somewhere in the last 4 years I stopped caring about being good. I just wanted him to hurt. And now that he is? Now I don't know what I am. Kang set down his cup. You're human, he said. Humans aren't good or bad. They're just surviving. And sometimes survival requires making people who hurt us face consequences. That sounds like a rationalization. Maybe, he shrugged. Or maybe the world is more complicated than heroes and villains. Clara finally drank some coffee. It was perfect. Of course it was. The jet leaves in 2 hours, Kang said. Security will escort you to the airport. I'll follow separately so we don't create photo opportunities for paparazzi. You're not coming back to Atlanta with me? Not immediately. I have business in New York, but I'll visit soon. Something uncomfortable twisted in Clara's chest. You don't have to, she said carefully. Visit, I mean. Last night was necessary, helpful, but you don't owe me anything. Kang looked at her for a long moment. I know I don't owe you anything. Then why? Because I want to. The words sat between them, heavier than they should have been. Clara felt her pulse quicken. Kang, Min-jae, he interrupted. When we're alone, call me Min-jae. Min-jae? The name felt strange in her mouth, intimate. I don't know what this is, you and me. I don't know what you want or expect, or I don't expect anything. Everyone expects something, not me. He leaned forward slightly. Clara, I helped you because it was right. Because someone should have helped my sister and nobody did, that's all. And the kiss? His expression shifted. The kiss was because I wanted to. Because standing next to you while you reclaimed your truth felt like the most honest thing I'd done in years. Clara's throat tightened. I'm a mess right now, emotionally, psychologically. I just destroyed my ex-husband's life and I'm not even sure I feel bad about it. I know. I'm probably going to need therapy. Probably. And I don't do relationships. I'm terrible at them. I work 80-hour weeks. I forget to eat. I disappear into code for days at a time. Min-jae smiled slightly. I run a criminal empire that spans 3 continents. I've killed people. I'll probably kill more. I don't sleep. I don't trust anyone. And I've never had a relationship that lasted longer than 6 months. He reached across the table and took her hand. So maybe we're both messes. Maybe that's okay. Clara looked down at their joined hands. His fingers were long, elegant, and scarred, in places she'd never noticed before. Evidence of a life lived violently, even when he looked civilized. What if this doesn't work? She asked quietly. Then it doesn't work. And we both survive. Like we always do. Clara met his eyes. They were dark, unreadable, and beneath the control, she saw something that matched what she felt. Exhaustion, wariness, and the faint hope that maybe, possibly, connection was worth the risk. Okay, she said finally. Okay? Visit me. We'll see what happens. Min-jae's smile was small but genuine. That's all I'm asking. He released her hand and stood. Eat, pack. Security will be here at 10. He walked toward the door. Min-jae? He paused. Thank you. For everything. Stop thanking me. I can't help it. He looked back at her, and for just a moment the dangerous businessman disappeared, and she saw someone younger underneath, someone who'd lost people and carried that weight silently for decades. You would have done the same, he said quietly, if you'd found my sister's signature in someone's code. You would have helped. Then he was gone, and Clara sat alone in the suite, staring at untouched breakfast while the city woke up outside and her phone continued buzzing with messages from a world that suddenly remembered she existed. Somewhere in Manhattan, Dominic Vale was probably meeting with lawyers. Somewhere else, journalists were writing think pieces about intellectual theft and gender bias in tech. And here, Clara Mensah sat in a hotel suite paid for by a man who controlled empires built on violence, trying to figure out if she was a hero or a villain or just a survivor who finally stopped running. Maybe she was all 3. Maybe that was enough. She picked up a pastry and took a bite. It tasted like victory. and underneath that faintly, like ash. Beck. 3 days later, Clara stood in her Atlanta apartment staring at a letter that had been slipped under her door. No postage, no return address, just her name written in handwriting she recognized immediately. Dominic's. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a single page. Clara, I know I have no right to contact you. I know the lawyers would tell me this is stupid, but I need you to understand something. I never wanted to hurt you. I loved you. Maybe I still do. But I was terrified that if investors knew you built the engine, they'd lose faith in me. In us. I told myself I was protecting the company, protecting our dream. I told myself a lot of things. I was wrong. Not about your brilliance. I always knew you were smarter than me. But about thinking I could build something real on a foundation of lies. The SEC is offering me a deal. 5 to 7 years if I cooperate fully and allocate you proper equity. My lawyer says I should take it. But before I do, I need to know. Was any of it real? Did you ever actually love me, or was I always just a vehicle for your ambition? I know I don't deserve an answer. I'm asking anyway. D. Clara read the letter 3 times. Then she walked to her kitchen, pulled out a lighter, and set the paper on fire. She watched it burn in her sink until nothing remained except ash. Then she pulled out her phone and called Min Jae. He answered on the first ring. Clara? Dominic sent me a letter. Silence on the other end. What did it say? Min Jae asked carefully. It doesn't matter. I burned it. Good. Clara exhaled slowly. He asked if I ever loved him. And? I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe I just loved the idea of building something with someone who understood ambition. That's not the same thing. No, Clara agreed. It's not. She looked out her apartment window at Atlanta stretched beneath gray clouds. Min Jae? Yeah? When you visit, and I know you will, you're too stubborn not to, bring food. I really am terrible at remembering to eat. She heard the smile in his voice. I'll bring food. They hung up, and Clara stood in her kitchen surrounded by the smell of burnt paper, finally understanding that loving someone and being destroyed by them weren't mutually exclusive. They could both be true. And she could survive both. The past was ash. The future was unwritten. And for the first time in 4 years, Clara Mensa felt ready to write it herself. The call came at 2 a.m. Clara jerked awake to her phone vibrating violently against the nightstand, the screen's glow cutting through her bedroom like a blade. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, paranoia, the residual hypervigilance of someone who'd spent 4 years looking over her shoulder, made her pick up. Hello? Silence on the other end. Not empty silence. Breathing silence. Someone was there. Who is this? Clara demanded, sitting up fully now. More silence. Then a voice. Female. Young. Shaking with barely controlled rage. You destroyed my father! Clara's blood went cold. Who? Sophia Vale. Dominic's daughter. The name hit like a physical blow. Clara had forgotten Dominic had a daughter from his first marriage. The girl would be what? 19? 20? Old enough to hate someone who dismantled her father's life in front of the entire world. Sophia, I know you're upset, but upset? The girl's laugh came out jagged. My father is going to prison because of you. Our family name is destroyed. My mother can't leave the house without photographers screaming questions. And you think I'm just upset? Clara swung her legs out of bed, adrenaline flooding her system. Your father stole my work. He erased me from the company I built. What happened to him is consequences, not revenge. He gave you everything, Sophia shouted. He made you somebody. You were nobody before Novolux, and you know it. The words stung because part of them was true. Before Dominic, Clara had been brilliant, but invisible. Another black woman technologist the industry ignored. Dominic gave her a platform, access, the kind of visibility that changed careers. Then he took it all back and pretended she never existed. Why are you calling me? Clara asked quietly. Because I need you to know something. What? My father isn't the only one who's going to suffer. The threat was clear. Clara's hand tightened on the phone. If you're threatening me, I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. Sophia's voice had gone eerily calm now. You took everything from my family, so I'm going to take everything from you. The line went dead. Clara sat in the darkness, heart hammering against her ribs. She told herself it was just a grieving daughter lashing out, empty threats from someone too young to understand consequences. But the fear crawling up her spine didn't believe that. She called Min Jae. He answered immediately, voice alert despite the hour. "What's wrong?" "Dominic's daughter just called me. She's threatening retaliation." A pause. What exactly did she say? Clara repeated the conversation word for word. Another pause, longer this time. "I'm sending the security team to your apartment. Don't leave until they arrive." "Min Jae, she's just a kid." "Kids can be dangerous, especially ones who feel justified." His voice had gone hard. "I'll make some calls. Find out what she's capable of." "You don't need to—" "Clara," he cut her off. "Let me protect you. Please." The rawness in that last word made her chest tighten. "Okay," she whispered. "Security will be there in 15 minutes. Lock your door. Don't answer it for anyone except them." He hung up. Clara sat in the dark for exactly 90 seconds before her laptop chimed. Email notification, her work email, at 2 in the morning. Every instinct screamed not to open it. She opened it anyway. The sender was an address she didn't recognize. No subject line, just an attachment, a video file. Claire's hand hovered over the mouse. "Don't click it," her brain warned. But she'd spent 4 years planning Dominic's downfall by following evidence wherever it led. She couldn't stop now just because the evidence felt dangerous. She clicked. The video opened, and Claire's entire world tilted sideways. The footage showed an office she recognized immediately, her old workspace at Novolux from 6 years ago. The camera angle suggested hidden surveillance, probably embedded in a ceiling fixture or smoke detector. On screen, Clara sat at her desk working on code while Dominic stood behind her. Nothing unusual yet. Then Dominic's hand came down on her shoulder. "You're brilliant," he said on the recording. "You know that?" "I know I'm exhausted," Clara's voice answered. "This predictive engine is eating my brain." "That's why I brought reinforcements." He set something on her desk. A coffee cup. Clara watched herself on screen pick it up and drink without questioning it. The timestamp in the corner showed 11:47 p.m. The video jumped forward. Now the timestamp read 12:33 a.m. On screen, Clara's head was down on her desk. Not sleeping, unconscious, and Dominic sat at her computer, hands flying across the keyboard, copying files to an external drive. Source code, architecture documents, everything she'd built, while she lay drugged and unaware 3 feet away. The video jumped again. 1:15 a.m. Dominic was shaking her shoulder gently. On screen, Clara stirred groggily. "Hey, you fell asleep," Dominic said, voice full of fake concern. "Come on, let's get you home." What time is it?" "Late. You've been working too hard." He helped her stand. She could barely walk straight, and Dominic guided her out of frame, the perfect concerned partner helping his exhausted girlfriend. The video ended. Clara stared at the frozen screen, bile rising in her throat. He'd drugged her. 6 years ago, Dominic Vale had drugged her and stolen her work while she lay unconscious at her own desk, and she never knew. All these years, she thought he'd stolen her work through legal manipulation and corporate restructuring. That was bad enough. But this was assault. This was criminal in ways that went beyond fraud. Her phone rang. Unknown number again. Clara answered with shaking hands. "Did you watch it?" Sophia's voice asked. "Where did you get this?" "My father kept insurance. Hidden cameras throughout Novolux in case partners or investors ever tried to screw him over. After the rooftop disaster, I found the backup drives in his home office." Clara couldn't breathe properly. "There are 47 videos," Sophia continued. 47 times over 3 years that my father drugged you to steal your work. Sometimes in the office. Sometimes at home. Once at a conference in San Francisco." The room started spinning. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Check your email again." Another notification chimed. Another video file. Clara didn't open it. She couldn't. "Why are you showing me this?" Clara whispered. "Because I want you to understand something." Sophia's voice had gone cold. "You think you destroyed my father by exposing intellectual theft. But if these videos go public, everyone will know you were too stupid to notice your own boyfriend was drugging you repeatedly. They'll say you were weak, incompetent, that maybe you didn't actually build Novolux because how could someone that brilliant be that blind?" Clara's hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped the phone. "What do you want?" "Drop the charges. Convince the SEC to give my father immunity. Use your new friendship with Kang Min Jae to make the evidence disappear." I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Because if you don't, I release every video to the media. Your reputation gets destroyed worse than his. And the world learns that the great Clara Mensa, genius architect, feminist icon, spent 3 years getting drugged by her boyfriend and never noticed. Silence filled the line. You have 48 hours, Sophia said. After that, I start uploading. She hung up. Clara sat frozen in her bedroom, staring at the laptop screen showing Dominic's face frozen mid-theft while her unconscious body slumped at the desk behind him. 3 years, 47 times, and she never knew. The security team knocked on her door. Clara didn't move. They knocked again, louder this time. Miss Mensah? It's building security. Mr. Kang sent us. Clara stood on legs that didn't feel attached to her body and walked to the door. The 2 men in the hallway were exactly what she expected. Military bearing, concealed weapons, eyes that cataloged everything instantly. Ms. Mensah, we need to secure your apartment. Okay. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. They moved past her, sweeping rooms with professional efficiency. Clara walked to her kitchen and sat at the table. Her laptop remained open in the bedroom, the video still paused on Dominic's face. Evidence of a crime she never reported because she never knew it happened. Her phone buzzed. Minjae. Security's with you? Yes? Good. I found some information on Sophia Vale. She's a sophomore at Columbia, computer science major. Graduated high school early. Extremely intelligent. She has videos of Dominic drugging me. Silence exploded on the other end. What? Clara's voice came out flat. Dead. Hidden surveillance from Novolux. 47 videos over 3 years showing Dominic drugging me and stealing my work while I was unconscious. She's threatening to release them if I don't drop the charges against him. Clara, he put something in my coffee. Probably my drinks at home, too. I thought I was just exhausted from overwork. I thought I was falling asleep at my desk because I was pushing too hard. Her hand started shaking again. But I wasn't sleeping, I was unconscious. And he was stealing from me while I lay there helpless. Where are the videos now? She emailed one. Says she has 46 more ready to upload. Minjae's breathing had changed. Harder. Angrier. Forward me the email, all of it. Why? Because we're going to find her. And we're going to get those videos before she can release them. Clara laughed, but it came out broken. She's right, though. If those videos go public, everyone will ask why I didn't notice. They'll say I was incompetent. Weak. That maybe I didn't actually build Novolux if I couldn't even tell my own boyfriend was drugging me. That's not... Yes, it is, Clara's voice cracked. I spent 4 years building a narrative about being the brilliant architect who got erased. But what if I was just the stupid girlfriend who got drugged repeatedly and never figured it out? Clara, listen to me. I thought I was so smart, so careful. I thought I knew what Dominic did to me. But I didn't know anything. She was crying now. Full ugly sobs that made breathing difficult. I need to come there, Minjae said. No. Clara, I need to think. I don't know what I need. You need to not be alone right now. Security's here. That's not the same thing. Clara wiped her face roughly. I'll call you tomorrow. Don't hang up. She hung up. Then she sat at her kitchen table while security swept her apartment and the weight of Sophia's threat pressed down like concrete. 48 hours. Drop the charges or be destroyed. Let Dominic walk free or prove to the world that she'd been too blind to protect herself. There was no good choice. There was no winning. There was just survival or annihilation, and Clara had no idea which one she was capable of choosing. Morning came with CNN playing footage of Dominic Vale being led into federal court. Clara watched from her couch, unable to look away. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The custom suit couldn't hide the defeat in his shoulders or the exhaustion carved into his face. Reporters screamed questions. Mr. Vale, are you accepting the plea deal? Did you really drug Dr. Mensah? That last question made Clara's stomach drop. The video hadn't leaked yet. So how did they know? Her phone buzzed. Another email from the unknown address. No video this time, just text. I told you I wasn't bluffing. Journalists now have anonymous tips about the drugging. They'll start digging. By tomorrow, they'll be asking you directly. And you'll have to choose, lie to protect yourself or tell the truth and admit you were too stupid to notice. 40 hours left. S. Clara's hands started shaking again. She'd underestimated Sophia Vale. The girl wasn't just threatening. She was executing a strategic campaign designed to destroy Clara's credibility before the videos ever dropped. Another text came through. This one from Min Jae. Journalists are calling about drugging allegations. Don't answer. Don't make statements. I'm handling it. But he couldn't handle this. Nobody could. Because the truth was the truth, and the videos proved it. Dominic had drugged her, repeatedly, for years, and Clara never noticed because she trusted him completely. That level of blindness wasn't something spin doctors could fix. Clara stood and walked to her bedroom. The laptop still sat open, the video still frozen on Dominic's face. She hit play, watched herself drink the coffee, watched herself collapse, watched Dominic steal her work with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done it dozens of times before. Her phone rang. She didn't look at the caller ID. What? Clara, it's Agent Chen. I need you to come downtown. The SEC agent's voice was carefully neutral. Why? We've received information about additional crimes related to the Novolux case, specifically allegations of drugging and assault. I need to take your statement. Clara's throat closed. I don't know anything about that. Ms. Mensah, if Dominic Vale drugged you to steal intellectual property, that's a federal crime. We need your cooperation to prosecute. I can't. Can't or won't? Both. Silence on Agent Chen's end. Miss Mensah, are you being threatened? Yes, Clara wanted to scream. Yes, his daughter has videos that will destroy me. Yes, I'm trapped between letting a criminal walk free or proving to the world that I was too blind to protect myself. But she said nothing. I'll take your silence as confirmation, Chen said quietly. Where are you right now? Home. Stay there. I'm sending protection. I already have security. Federal protection. These are serious allegations, Clara. If someone's threatening you to keep you from testifying, nobody's threatening me. The lie tasted like ash. Then why won't you come downtown? Because I need time to think. You don't have time. Dominic's plea hearing is in 36 hours. If we're adding drugging charges, we need evidence now. Clara closed her eyes. 36 hours. Sophia's deadline was 40. The timelines were designed to crush her. I'll call you back, Clara said. Clara. She hung up. Then she pulled up her contacts and dialed the last person she wanted to talk to. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. Clara? Dominic's voice sounded wrecked. How did you get this number? Your daughter called me. Silence. What did she say? She showed me the videos, Dominic, all of them. She heard him exhale slowly. I'm sorry. The words landed like nothing. You're sorry? Clara's voice came out strangled. You drugged me. 47 times. You violated me in ways I don't even have language for. And you're sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. You assaulted me, Clara screamed. You put drugs in my drinks and stole from me while I lay unconscious, and you think sorry covers that? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Dominic? Explain to me how drugging your girlfriend repeatedly is something other than assault. He didn't answer. Clara's hand shook so hard she could barely hold the phone. Tell your daughter to destroy the videos. I can't. Yes, you can. Tell her this is over. Tell her to stop. She won't listen to me. She hasn't listened to me since her mother and I divorced. She blames me for everything, and now... His voice cracked. Now she's trying to save me the only way she knows how, by destroying you. Clara's laugh came out bitter. Like father, like daughter. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, Clara shouted. I didn't ask to be drugged. I didn't ask to have my work stolen. I didn't ask for any of this. Neither did I. The audacity made Clara's vision go red. You chose this, every single piece of it. You chose to drug me. You chose to steal my work. You chose to erase me from Novolux. This entire disaster is your creation. And you chose to destroy me instead of just walking away. The words hung between them. I had every right. I know, Dominic interrupted. I know you did. But rights and choices aren't the same thing. You could have rebuilt your life without burning down mine. But you wanted revenge. I wanted truth. You wanted me to suffer. Clara opened her mouth to deny it, but couldn't, because he was right. She did want him to suffer. Tell Sophia to destroy the videos, Clara said quietly. If I could, I would. But she's doing this to protect me. And I can't. His voice broke completely. I can't stop her from loving me the way I couldn't stop myself from destroying you. He hung up. Clara sat in the silence of her apartment while security moved quietly in the hallway and the weight of impossible choices pressed down until she couldn't breathe. 40 hours. Then the videos dropped and everyone learned that Clara Mensa, brilliant architect, feminist icon, symbol of women reclaiming stolen work, had spent 3 years getting drugged by her boyfriend and never noticed. The narrative would shift instantly, from genius to victim, from hero to cautionary tale, from someone who fought back to someone too broken to save herself. And Dominic would walk free because Sophia was right. If those videos went public, Clara's credibility would evaporate. Any testimony she gave would be questioned. Any evidence she provided would be dismissed as the bitter revenge of a woman too embarrassed to admit she'd been fooled. Clara stood and walked to the window. Atlanta stretched beneath gray clouds, indifferent to her crisis. Somewhere in the city, Min-jae was probably mobilizing resources to find Sophia. Somewhere else, Agent Chen was building a case that required Clara's cooperation. And here, Clara stood at the intersection of truth and survival, forced to choose between them. Her phone buzzed. Text from Min-jae. Found her. Columbia campus. I can have someone grab her before she uploads anything. Clara stared at the message. Grab her. Like Sophia was property to be seized. Like violence solved problems instead of creating new ones. She typed back. No. Immediate response. Clara, she's going to destroy you. I know. Then let me stop her. Clara's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of her, the part that had spent 4 years planning Dominic's downfall, wanted to say yes. Wanted to let Min-jae's people disappear Sophia into whatever dark corner criminal empires used for problems that needed solving. But that wasn't who Clara was. Or at least, it wasn't who she wanted to be. No violence, she typed. I'll handle this. How? Clara didn't have an answer, so she didn't respond. Instead, she opened her laptop and pulled up the video again, watched herself drink the coffee, watched herself collapse, watched Dominic steal her work. And somewhere in the watching, a terrible clarity settled over her. The videos were evidence of a crime, not against Clara's reputation, against Clara's body. What Dominic did wasn't just intellectual theft. It was assault, battery, violations that carried criminal penalties separate from the fraud charges. And if Sophia released the videos trying to embarrass Clara, she'd actually be providing evidence that would send Dominic to prison for decades instead of years. Clara picked up her phone and called Agent Chen. I'm ready to give my statement. About the drugging? Yes? When can you come downtown? Now. But I need you to understand something first. What? Clara took a deep breath. There are videos. Surveillance footage showing Dominic drugging me repeatedly over 3 years. His daughter has them, and she's threatening to release them publicly if I don't drop the charges. Silence. Then, forward me everything she sent you, every email, every video, every threat. If those videos go public, then we have ironclad evidence of multiple felonies, Chen interrupted, and Sophia Vale gets charged with extortion and obstruction of justice. Something loosened in Clara's chest. You don't think it makes me look weak? That I didn't notice? Clara. Chen's voice gentled. Victims of drugging don't look weak. They look like victims, and perpetrators look like criminals. That's how this works. Clara felt tears building again. I spent 4 years trying to prove I was strong enough to fight back. And you were. You are. But strength doesn't mean you weren't also harmed. Both things can be true. Clara wiped her face. I'll send you everything, but Chen? Yeah? I want immunity for Sophia. What? She's actively committing a felony. She's 19 years old trying to save her father. If we prosecute her, we're just creating another victim. She threatened you. I know, but prosecuting her doesn't undo what Dominic did. It just destroys one more life. Chen sighed. I'll talk to the prosecutor, but no promises. That's all I'm asking. They hung up. Clara forwarded every email, every video, every piece of evidence Sophia had sent. Then she called Min-jae. I'm going to the SEC office. I'm giving them everything. Clara, I assurum. The videos prove Dominic drugged me. That's multiple counts of assault and battery. Even if Sophia releases them publicly, they just make his crimes worse. Silence on Min-jae's end, then, You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm coming with you. You don't— I'm coming with you, he repeated, firmer this time. Clara closed her eyes. Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up. Clara sat in her apartment surrounded by security and evidence and the wreckage of her old life, finally understanding something fundamental. She couldn't control the narrative. She couldn't make people see her as strong instead of victimized. She couldn't force the world to understand that being harmed and fighting back weren't contradictory. All she could control was the truth. And the truth was that Dominic Vale had drugged her, violated her, and stolen from her. Whether that made her look weak or strong didn't matter. It was what happened. And Clara Mensah had spent 4 years learning that the truth was worth protecting, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. She stood and got dressed. 20 minutes later, Min Jae arrived with a security detail that could have invaded a small country. He took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. Clara let herself be held for exactly 30 seconds. Then she pulled back. I need to do this. I know. They walked out of her apartment together, and Clara Mensah drove toward the federal building carrying evidence that would either destroy her reputation or cement Dominic's guilt. She didn't know which, but she knew she was done letting fear make her choices. The truth would land wherever it landed, and Clara would survive, like she always did. The federal building's fluorescent lights made everything look like a crime scene. Clara sat across from Agent Chen in an interrogation room that smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Min Jae stood against the wall behind her, silent but present, his mere existence a reminder that she wasn't alone in this. Chen had a recorder running and a legal pad covered in notes. Start from the beginning, Chen said. First time you remember being drugged. Clara's hands were clasped so tightly in her lap her knuckles had gone white. I don't remember the first time. That's the problem. I thought I was just exhausted, falling asleep at my desk because I was working 18-hour days. When did the exhaustion start? Clara closed her eyes, forcing herself back through years she'd tried to forget. About 6 months after Dominic and I started Novolux. We'd just closed Series A funding. I was building the core predictive engine, and the pressure was crushing. So when I started passing out at weird times, I just assumed my body was giving out. How often? Once, maybe twice a week at first, then more frequently as we got closer to launch. Chen wrote something down. Did you see a doctor? Yes. 3 different ones. They all said the same thing: stress, overwork, burnout. One prescribed sleeping pills, another suggested I take a sabbatical. But you didn't. I couldn't. The company needed me. The words tasted bitter now. Did Dominic ever express concern about your health? Clara's laugh came out broken. He was the most concerned person in the room, always bringing me coffee, making sure I ate, driving me home when I was too tired to function. I thought— Her voice cracked. I thought he was taking care of me. Min Jae shifted behind her. She could feel his rage radiating like heat. Chen leaned forward. Clara, I need you to watch the videos again. All of them. I need you to identify dates, locations, what was stolen each time. Can you do that? Clara's stomach turned. Do I have to? If we're prosecuting Dominic for assault and battery in addition to fraud, we need a complete timeline. I know it's hard. You don't know anything, Clara interrupted. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. You don't know what it's like to watch yourself get violated 47 times and realize you were too stupid to notice. You weren't stupid, Min Jae said quietly from behind her. You were trusting someone you loved. That's not the same thing. Clara turned to look at him. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes held something raw, something that understood violation from the inside out. I can't watch them all, Clara whispered. I'll break. Then we'll watch them together, Chen said. You, me, and a trauma counselor. We'll go as slow as you need. Clara shook her head. There's no time. Sophia's deadline is— She checked her phone. 37 hours. If we don't move fast, she releases everything anyway. Let her, Chen said. Clara's head snapped up. What? Let her release the videos. It doesn't change the evidence. It just makes her complicit in witness intimidation and obstruction. But my reputation— Your reputation will survive. Dominic's won't. And honestly, Clara, I think you need to stop protecting his daughter from consequences. She's an adult making adult choices. Clara looked down at her hands. Chen was right. Sophia was 19, not 9. Old enough to understand that extortion was illegal. Old enough to know that releasing revenge porn, because that's what this was Footage of Clara unconscious and vulnerable carried criminal penalties. But Clara also remembered being 19, remembered the desperate loyalty to people who didn't deserve it, remembered making terrible choices because the alternative felt like abandonment. "Give me 24 hours, Clara said. "Let me talk to her. If she doesn't destroy the videos by tomorrow, we prosecute. Deal?" Chen studied her face for a long moment. 24 hours. But Clara, if she releases even one video before then, all bets are off. Understood. They spent the next 3 hours going through documentation. Timeline construction. Evidence organization. By the time Clara walked out of the federal building, exhaustion had settled into her bones like concrete. Min-jae guided her toward the car with one hand on the small of her back. "You need food," he said. "I need sleep." Food first, then sleep. He drove them to a Korean restaurant that was somehow still open at 11 p.m., the kind of place with paper lanterns and wooden tables and food that tasted like someone's grandmother made it. Clara picked at bibimbap while Min-jae watched her with concern carved into his features. "Stop looking at me like I'm going to shatter," she said. "You just watched yourself get drugged on camera. You're allowed to shatter." "I don't have time to shatter. I need to find Sophia before she does something that destroys both our lives." Min-jae set down his chopsticks. "My people can still—" "No." Clara's voice was firm. "No violence. No intimidation. I talk to her like a human being, or this whole thing becomes exactly what Dominic always said it was, revenge instead of justice." Sometimes revenge and justice are the same thing. Not this time. They ate in silence for a while. Finally, Min-jae spoke again. "My sister's name was Ji-yeon." Clara looked up. He was staring at his food, jaw tight. "She was 3 years younger than me, brilliant, kind, everything I wasn't." His hands curled into fists. The man who stole her work was her mentor, someone she trusted completely. When she tried to expose him, he destroyed her so thoroughly that she couldn't see a way forward. Min-jae, say... I found her in her apartment. Pills. Empty bottles everywhere. His voice had gone flat. Dead. The note said she was tired of fighting, tired of nobody believing her. Clara reached across the table and took his hand. He looked down at their joined fingers like he didn't understand how they got there. "After she died, I became what I am now. Built an empire on violence and fear because I learned that power was the only thing that mattered. That truth didn't win unless you had the force to make people listen." He looked up at her. "But watching you fight Dominic, choosing truth over comfort, evidence over silence, it reminded me that Ji-yeon wanted to win the right way. She didn't want revenge. She wanted acknowledgement." His grip tightened. "Don't let Sophia turn you into me. Don't let this make you someone who solves problems with violence." Clara's throat closed. "What if talking doesn't work?" "Then we try something else. But you try talking first, because that's who you are." They finished eating in silence, heavy with grief and possibility. Min-jae drove Clara back to her apartment. Security was waiting in the hallway. Different faces, same military bearing. "Get some sleep," Min-jae said. "Tomorrow you find Sophia. Tonight you rest." Clara nodded, but sleep felt impossible. She showered, trying to wash away the residue of the day, put on pajamas that felt too soft against skin that wanted armor, climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling while her mind replayed the videos on infinite loop. Dominic's hand on her shoulder. The coffee. Her head hitting the desk, over and over and over. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. "I know Agent Chen is building a case. I know you gave her the videos, but it won't matter. Because tomorrow morning, every major news outlet in America wakes up to footage of you getting drugged by your boyfriend for 3 years, and by noon, you'll be the most famous victim in tech. Is that really what you want? To be defined by what he did to you?" 32 hours. Z. Clara stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then she did something impulsive. She called the number. Sophia answered on the third ring. "What do you want?" Her voice was younger than Clara expected, scared underneath the bravado. "To talk. In person." "Why would I meet you?" "Because you're not a monster and neither am I. We're just two people trying to survive men who hurt us." Silence on the other end. "My father didn't hurt me. Maybe not physically, but he's hurting you now by making you clean up his mess, by putting you in a position where you have to commit crimes to save him." "I'm not committing crimes. Extortion is a crime, Sophia. So is witness intimidation. So is distributing footage of someone unconscious without their consent. You're 19 years old and you're about to catch federal charges because your father can't face consequences. More silence. Then, where? Columbia campus, tomorrow morning. Just you and me. No security? Clara hesitated. Minjae would lose his mind if she went anywhere without protection, but Sophia wouldn't talk if she felt cornered. No security, Clara agreed. Just us. 10 a.m. Butler Library. Come alone or I upload everything. The line went dead. Clara sat in her bed, heart hammering, already knowing she'd just made a promise she couldn't keep. Because Minjae would never let her walk into a meeting with someone who'd threatened her life without backup. But maybe he didn't need to know. Dawn came gray and cold. Clara dressed carefully, jeans, sweater, jacket that could hide the small canister of pepper spray she slipped into her pocket. Just in case. She left a note for security saying she was going for coffee. Then she slipped out the back stairs and called an Uber. The ride to New York felt surreal. Trees blurred past the windows. Other cars full of people living normal lives where nobody was blackmailing them with evidence of assault. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Minjae calling, security calling, Agent Chen calling. She ignored them all. This conversation needed to happen without witnesses, without pressure. Just two women trying to find a way forward that didn't destroy both their lives. Columbia's campus looked exactly like the brochures. Ivy-covered buildings, students hurrying between classes, the kind of institutional beauty that promised futures worth building. Clara found Butler Library and walked inside. The main reading room was massive. High ceilings, rows of wooden desks, students bent over laptops and textbooks with the focused intensity of people who still believed education would save them. Sophia sat at a desk near the back. She looked younger than Clara expected. Dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, oversized sweatshirt, shadows under her eyes that suggested she'd slept about as well as Clara. When their eyes met, something complicated passed between them. Recognition, not of each other, of the situation. Two people caught in Dominic Vale's gravitational pull, unable to escape even after he'd destroyed himself. Clara walked over and sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. You came alone. I said I would. People lie. I don't. Not about things that matter. Sophia's jaw tightened. Up close, Clara could see traces of Dominic in her face. The same sharp cheekbones, same intense eyes. But something else, too. Something harder. More wounded. Why are you doing this? Clara asked quietly. You know why. You destroyed my father. Your father destroyed himself. I just stopped protecting him. He made mistakes. He committed crimes, Sophia, repeatedly, for years. So you're perfect? Sophia's voice rose slightly. Students at nearby desks looked over. She lowered it again. You never made mistakes? Never hurt anyone? Clara took a breath. I'm not perfect, but I didn't drug anyone. I didn't steal intellectual property. I didn't systematically erase someone from the company they built. He gave you everything. He took everything, Clara interrupted. And now you're trying to do the same thing by threatening to release those videos. Sophia's hands curled into fists on the desk. You don't understand what it's like. Watching your father fall apart. Watching the news call him a thief and a fraud. Watching your family name turn into a punchline. You're right. I don't understand that. But I do understand watching someone you love betray you so completely, you question your own sanity. I understand spending years wondering if you're crazy or if the world really is as unfair as it feels. Something flickered across Sophia's face. He loved you, she said quietly. In his own broken way, he actually loved you. Love doesn't drug people. Love makes people desperate. Clara leaned forward. Sophia, those videos don't just embarrass me. They're evidence of assault. Multiple counts. If you release them, you're not saving your father. You're giving prosecutors ammunition to add 20 years to his sentence. Sophia blinked. Clearly this hadn't occurred to her. But the lawyer said, what lawyer? My father's defense attorney. He said the videos would discredit you, make you look incompetent, that juries wouldn't believe someone that smart could be drugged repeatedly without noticing. Rage flashed through Clara's chest. Your father's lawyer is using you. Those videos prove felony assault. They don't help Dominic. They bury him. Sophia's face went pale. You're lying. Call Agent Chen at the SEC. Ask her yourself. Clara slid a business card across the desk. Sophia stared at it like it was a bomb. I can't. You're 19 years old committing federal crimes because a defense attorney convinced you it would help your father. But it won't. It'll just destroy both of you. Sophia's hands started shaking. He's all I have. My mom remarried some banker who pretends I don't exist. My stepdad thinks I'm a burden. Dad's the only person who... Her voice broke. He's the only person who acts like I matter. Clara's anger softened into something more complicated. I understand, but Sophia, your father drugged me, violated me, stole from me, and now he's letting you commit crimes to protect him instead of telling you to stop. Is that really someone who has your best interests at heart? Tears spilled down Sophia's face. I don't know what else to do. If he goes to prison, I lose him. And I can't lose anyone else. Clara reached across the desk slowly and took Sophia's hand. The girl flinched but didn't pull away. You won't lose him completely. Prison visits exist, phone calls, letters. But if you release those videos, you'll lose yourself. You'll become someone who hurts people to protect someone who doesn't deserve protection. And you can't come back from that. Sophia sobbed once, harsh and broken. Why are you being nice to me? I threatened you. I tried to destroy you. Because you're 19 and scared and your father put you in an impossible situation. That's not your fault. It feels like my fault. I know, but it's not. They sat like that, hands joined across the library desk while students studied around them, completely unaware of the negotiation happening in their midst. Finally, Sophia pulled her hand back and wiped her face. What do I do? Destroy the videos. All of them. Give me the drives. And then what? Then you go back to being a college student. You let the legal system handle your father. You build a life that doesn't depend on protecting someone else's lies. Sophia looked down at her backpack. Clara's heart stopped. Slowly, Sophia reached inside and pulled out 3 external hard drives. These are all of them. Every camera, every angle, every time. She pushed them across the desk. Clara stared at the drives like they were weapons, which they were. Sophia, Take them, before I change my mind. Clara grabbed the drives and shoved them into her bag. What about the copies? There are no copies. Dad was paranoid about cloud storage, said networks could be hacked. Everything was on physical drives locked in his home office. Relief flooded Clara's system so suddenly she felt lightheaded. Thank you. Sophia laughed bitterly. Don't thank me. I still think you're destroying my father. I'm not destroying him. I'm just refusing to lie for him anymore. That's the same thing. Clara stood. No, it's not. But I understand why it feels that way. She turned to leave. Clara? Clara looked back. Sophia's face was blotchy from crying, young and old at the same time. Did you really love him, my dad? Clara considered lying, considered softening the truth into something easier to carry, but she'd spent too many years doing that already. I loved who I thought he was. Turns out that person never existed. She walked out of the library into cold November air that tasted like freedom. Her phone exploded the moment she turned it back on. 17 missed calls from Min Jae, 23 from security, 8 from Agent Chen. She called Min Jae first. He answered before the first ring finished. Where the hell are you? Columbia. I met with Sophia. Alone? After everything, Clara, are you insane? Probably, but I have the drives. All of them. Silence. Then, say that again. Sophia gave me every hard drive with the surveillance footage. No copies, no cloud backup. It's over. Min Jae's exhale sounded like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Are you safe? Yes. Stay there. I'm sending a car. Min Jae, stay there, he repeated. Firmer now. Please. The rawness in his voice made Clara's throat tight. Okay. She sat on the library steps and waited. Students flowed past, backpacks, coffee cups, conversations about exams and relationships, and all the small dramas that filled lives not currently imploding. Clara envied them. 15 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. Min Jae climbed out before it fully stopped. He crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides and pulled her into his arms hard enough to hurt. Clara let herself be held. Don't do that again, he said against her hair. Which part? Any of it. All of it. Disappearing without security, meeting someone who threatened your life, giving me a heart attack before noon. Clara pulled back to look at his face. Real fear lived there, raw and unguarded. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, just don't do it again. He kissed her then, hard and desperate and completely inappropriate for the middle of a college campus. Clara kissed him back. When they finally broke apart, Min-jae rested his forehead against hers. I can't lose you, he whispered. You won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because I don't break. I just bend until everything else does. Min-jae laughed despite himself. That's the most arrogant thing I've ever heard. Learned from the best. They climbed into that SUV. Clara handed him the hard drives. He turned them over in his hands like they were grenades. What do you want to do with these? Give them to Agent Chen. Let her use them to prosecute Dominic for assault, but keep one video, the clearest one, the one that shows exactly what he did. Why? Clara's jaw tightened. Because Dominic's plea hearing is tomorrow, and I want him to see it. I want him to watch himself drug me and know that I know, that everyone knows, that his daughter knows. Min-jae studied her face. That's cruel. Yes. I approve. They drove back to Manhattan in comfortable silence. Clara's phone buzzed. Agent Chen. Please tell me you didn't do anything stupid? Define stupid. Clara, I have the drives. All of them. Sophia Vale gave them to me voluntarily. Stunned silence on the other end. You're serious. Completely. I'm bringing them to you now, but I need you to do something for me. What? Tomorrow at Dominic's plea hearing, I want to play one of the videos in court, before he allocates, before he makes his statement. I want him to see what he did to me in front of a judge. Clara, that's necessary. He needs to face it, not just admit it in paperwork, actually see it. Chen exhaled slowly. I'll talk to the prosecutor, but if the judge says no, then we tried. They arrived at the federal building 20 minutes later. Agent Chen met them in the lobby with two other prosecutors Clara didn't recognize. She handed over the drives like they were evidence in a murder trial, which, in a way, they were. Murder of trust, of safety, of the person Clara used to be before she learned that love and violation could coexist. Chen took the drives carefully. We'll need your testimony, full deposition, trauma counselor present. Tomorrow, after the plea hearing. Clara, tomorrow, Clara repeated. I need to see his face when he realizes I'm not protecting him anymore. Chen looked at Min-jae. He shrugged. She's been making decisions that terrify me all day. I've given up trying to stop her. Chen almost smiled. Fine. Tomorrow. But Clara, after this, you need actual rest. Therapy. Time to process what happened to you. After, Clara agreed. They left the federal building as sunset painted Manhattan gold and violent. Min-jae drove Clara back to her apartment. Security was waiting, furious and relieved in equal measure. Ms. Mensah, you cannot disappear like that. I know. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. She walked inside and collapsed on her couch. Min-jae sat beside her. You should eat something. I should sleep. Food first. Clara turned to look at him. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Taking care of me. You barely know me. We've kissed 3 times and had maybe 10 actual conversations. This isn't your problem. Min-jae was quiet for a long moment. My sister died alone, he said finally. Afraid and convinced nobody cared enough to save her. I swore after that I would never let someone He stopped. Someone I cared about face darkness alone. Clara's chest tightened. You care about me? Obviously. Why? Because you're brilliant and terrifying, and you don't let fear make your choices. Because watching you fight back reminded me that truth matters even when it's hard. Because, he turned to face her fully, because I've spent 20 years building an empire on violence, and you make me want to be someone who builds things instead of destroying them. Clara couldn't breathe properly. Min-jae, I know it's too fast. I know we barely know each other. I know I'm a criminal, and you're everything good I'm not. But I can't help how I feel. Clara reached up and touched his face. I don't think you're not good. I think you're someone who got hurt and learned to hurt back. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? No. She kissed him softly. When they pulled apart, Min-jae's eyes held something raw. Tomorrow, when Dominic sees that video, are you ready for what comes after? Clara thought about it. Thought about standing in a courtroom while footage of her unconscious body played for judges and lawyers and court reporters. Thought about the articles that would be written, the think pieces, the debates about whether she was brave or broken or both. Thought about Dominic's face when he finally understood the full scope of what he'd done. No, she said honestly. But I'm doing it anyway. That's very on brand for you, Clara laughed despite everything. They ordered Thai food and ate on her couch while the sun finished setting and the weight of tomorrow pressed against the windows like a living thing. At midnight, Min-jae stood to leave. Security stays outside your door tonight. I know. And you call me if anything feels wrong. I will. He kissed her once more at the door. Tomorrow you reclaim the narrative. You show Dominic exactly what he did. And then you start healing. In that order? In that order. He left. Clara locked the door and walked to her bedroom. She should have felt afraid. Instead, she felt certain. Tomorrow, Dominic Vale would face consequences. Not abstract legal ones, real ones. The kind that required him to look at what he'd done and acknowledge the human cost. Clara climbed into bed and closed her eyes. And for the first time in weeks, she slept without nightmares. Because the truth was finally, completely free. And nothing, not Dominic's lawyers, not Sophia's threats, not the world's judgment, could bury it again. Morning came sharp and cold. Clara dressed in a charcoal suit that felt like armor, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, the kind of presentation that said professional, composed, unbreakable, even if she felt like shattered glass barely held together. Min-jae picked her up at 8. Agent Chen met them at the courthouse at 9. Dominic's plea hearing was scheduled for 10. They had 1 hour to prepare for the moment that would define everything. Chen pulled Clara into a conference room. The judge approved showing the video, but Clara, once we start this, there's no going back. Dominic will know you have everything. His lawyers will know. The media will know. Your privacy disappears completely. Clara's hands were steady. I stopped caring about privacy when Sophia threatened to release the footage anyway. At least this way, it's on my terms. Chen nodded. Okay. Then let's destroy him. They walked into the courtroom at 9:55. The gallery was packed. Journalists, legal observers, former Novolux employees who'd watched the company implode and wanted to see the final chapter. Dominic sat at the defense table with his legal team. He looked smaller than Clara remembered, grayer, diminished in ways that had nothing to do with the expensive suit his lawyers probably picked out. When he saw Clara enter, something complicated crossed his face. Hope. Like maybe she was here to save him one last time. Clara met his eyes directly and watched the hope die. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The bailiff called the case, and Dominic Vale's final reckoning began. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, before we proceed with the plea allocation, the government has additional evidence regarding the defendant's conduct that we believe is relevant to sentencing. The judge frowned. What kind of evidence? Video surveillance showing the defendant engaged in assault and battery against Dr. Clara Mensah on 47 separate occasions over a 3-year period. The courtroom erupted. Dominic's lawyers shot to their feet. Your Honor, we weren't informed. The evidence just came into our possession yesterday, the prosecutor explained. We're providing it now in the interest of full disclosure. The judge looked skeptical. Ms. Prosecutor, this is highly irregular. I understand, Your Honor, but the evidence is directly relevant to the defendant's character and the scope of his criminal conduct. The judge looked at Clara. Dr. Mensah, do you consent to this video being shown in open court? Clara stood. Her voice came out steady. Yes, Your Honor. Even knowing it will become part of the public record? Yes. The judge studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Proceed. The lights dimmed, and on the screen at the front of the courtroom, the video began to play. Clara forced herself to watched herself drink the coffee, watched herself collapse, watched Dominic, the man she'd loved, trusted, built a company with, steal from her unconscious body with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done it dozens of times. The courtroom was silent, not respectful silence, horrified silence. When the video ended, nobody moved. The judge looked at Dominic with something close to disgust. Mr. Vale, did you drug Dr. Mensah on the date shown in this video? Dominic's lawyer stood quickly. Your Honor, my client, I'm asking your client, counselor. Sit down. The lawyer sat. Dominic stood slowly. His face had gone chalk white. Yes, Your Honor, I did. And on other occasions as well? Dominic looked at Clara. She stared back, unflinching. Yes. How many times? I don't remember exactly. The government has 47 videos, the prosecutor interjected, each showing similar conduct over a 3-year period. The judge's jaw tightened. Mr. Vale, I've seen a lot of terrible things in this courtroom, but watching you drug someone who trusted you, someone you claimed to love, so you could steal her work. The judge shook their head. I'm rejecting the plea agreement. The charges will be amended to include multiple counts of assault, battery, and administering drugs without consent. Sentencing guidelines are now 25 to 30 years. Dominic's knees buckled. His lawyers caught him before he hit the floor. The courtroom exploded into noise, journalists shouting questions, spectators reacting, the bailiff calling for order. Clara stood perfectly still, watching Dominic realize that everything he'd built, including his escape plan, had just collapsed completely. Agent Chen leaned close. You did it. Clara nodded, but she didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired. The judge gavelled the room to silence. Mr. Vale, do you have anything to say for yourself? Dominic looked at Clara one last time, and finally, she saw actual remorse in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said, his voice cracked. Clara, I'm so sorry. For all of it. Clara said nothing. Because sorry didn't undo 47 violations. Sorry didn't give her back the years she spent questioning her own sanity. Sorry was just a word. And words had stopped mattering a long time ago. The judge set a new trial date. Bailiffs led Dominic away in handcuffs. And Clara Mensah walked out of the courtroom into blinding camera flashes and shouted questions and the beginning of whatever came next. Min Jae was waiting outside. He took one look at her face and pulled her through the crowd toward the SUV. They drove away from the courthouse while news helicopters circled overhead, and Clara's phone exploded with notifications she'd never read. Where do you want to go? Min Jae asked. Clara thought about it. Home? Atlanta. My actual life. Okay? But not alone. Min Jae looked at her. I'll come with you, for as long as you want. Clara took his hand. That might be a while. Good. They drove toward the airport while Manhattan disappeared in the rearview mirror and the future, uncertain, terrifying, and completely Clara's, spread out ahead like an unmapped road. She'd destroyed Dominic, reclaimed her truth, faced down threats that would have broken weaker people, and survived. Not unscathed, but alive. And sometimes Clara realized survival was the only victory that actually mattered. The flight to Atlanta felt like traveling through time itself. Clara sat in the private jet Min Jae had arranged, watching New York disappear beneath clouds that looked like they were erasing evidence. The city where she'd reclaimed her truth, destroyed Dominic's empire, and finally stopped running from what happened to her, all of it shrinking into nothing as the plane climbed higher. Min Jae sat across from her, working on his laptop with the focused intensity of someone who controlled empires that never slept. But every few minutes, his eyes would flick toward her, checking without asking if she was okay. Clara appreciated that more than words could express. Her phone had been on airplane mode since they boarded, but she could imagine the chaos exploding across every news outlet. The videos would be dissected, her unconscious face analyzed. Think pieces written about trust and violation and whether she should have known better. Part of her wanted to care. The rest was too exhausted to give any energy to strangers' opinions. You're quiet, Min Jae said, closing his laptop. I'm processing. Want to process out loud? Clara looked at him, this man who'd walked into her life like a storm, and somehow made the chaos feel survivable. I keep waiting to feel victorious, like I won something. But mostly, I just feel empty. Min Jae nodded slowly. That's normal. Revenge rarely delivers what people expect. It wasn't revenge. Wasn't it? Clara considered lying, considered maintaining the narrative that this was purely about justice and truth, but she'd spent too many years lying to herself already. Maybe it started as justice, she admitted quietly. But somewhere along the way, part of me wanted him to suffer the way I suffered, wanted him to feel helpless and violated and erased. And now that he is? Now I don't know what I am. Min-jae reached across the small table between them and took her hand. You're someone who survived something terrible and refused to stay silent. That's enough. Is it? Yes. The certainty in his voice made Clara's throat tight. They landed in Atlanta 2 hours later to gray skies and air that smelled like home. Clara's apartment felt smaller than she remembered, like the last few weeks had expanded her understanding of what was possible and impossible in the world, and everything familiar had shrunk to accommodate that new knowledge. Security swept the place anyway. Min-jae made coffee while Clara stood at her window overlooking the city that had sheltered her during the years she spent rebuilding herself in silence. What happens now? She asked. Min-jae came to stand beside her, 2 mugs in hand. Whatever you want. That's not helpful. It's honest. He handed her a mug. You spent 4 years planning Dominic's downfall. Now that it's done, you get to decide who you are next. Clara sipped the coffee. It was perfect, which somehow made her want to cry. I don't know who I am without that mission driving me. Then you figure it out, one day at a time. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Atlanta wake up beneath them. Clara's phone buzzed. She turned it back on reluctantly, knowing the avalanche that waited. 317 notifications. She scrolled through them with detached curiosity. News alerts, interview requests, messages from former colleagues who'd ghosted her 4 years ago and suddenly wanted to reconnect. Venture capitalists who'd rejected her post-Novolux and now saw opportunity in her newfound fame. One message stood out. From Sophia Vale. Clara's finger hovered over it. You don't have to read it, Min-jae said quietly. I know, but she opened it anyway. Dr. Mensah. I watched the court footage. My dad's lawyers sent it to my mom thinking it would make us feel better. It didn't. I'm sorry, not for protecting him. I do that again because he's my father, but for trying to destroy you in the process. You were right. Those videos were evidence of crimes, not ammunition. I don't know if you can forgive me. I don't know if I even deserve forgiveness, but I needed you to know that I see you now, not as my dad's enemy, as someone he hurt. I hope you find peace. Sophia. Clara read it twice, then handed the phone to Min-jae. He read in silence, expression unreadable. What do you want to do? Clara thought about it. Thought about Sophia, 19 years old and desperate to save someone who'd put her in an impossible position. Thought about the videos she'd handed over. The choice she'd made to stop fighting, even though it meant losing her father to prison. I want to write back, Clara said. Saying what? Clara took the phone and typed slowly. Sophia. Forgiveness is complicated. I'm not there yet. Maybe I won't be for a long time. But I understand why you did what you did, and I hope you find a way to build a life that doesn't require protecting people who hurt others. You're 19. You have time to become someone different than your father. Use it. Clara. She hit send before she could second-guess it. Min-jae read over her shoulder and nodded slightly. That was generous. Maybe, or maybe I just don't want to carry any more hatred than I already do. The next few days passed in a blur. Agent Chen called to schedule Clara's full deposition. The trauma counselor assigned to the case reached out to set up sessions. Journalists camped outside Clara's building until security ran them off. And slowly, painfully slowly, Clara began the process of actually processing what Dominic had done to her. The counseling sessions were brutal. Sitting in a comfortable office with soft lighting while a professional with kind eyes asked Clara to describe each video in detail, to remember what she'd been working on each time she was drugged, to articulate how it felt to watch herself be violated repeatedly and realize she'd trusted her attacker completely. Some days, Clara could barely get through 30 minutes before she had to stop. Other days, she sat for hours, pulling apart the knot of trauma and shame and rage until her voice went hoarse and her eyes burned from crying. Min-jae was there every time she emerged, never asking what happened in the sessions, just present, solid, a reminder that surviving didn't require explanation. 2 weeks after the courthouse, Clara finally returned to her own company, the AI platform she'd built quietly over 4 years while the world forgot she existed. Her team greeted her with applause and relief and careful questions about whether she was okay. Clara lied and said yes, but at her desk, surrounded by code she'd written and architecture she'd designed without anyone to steal it, Clara felt something shift. This was hers. Completely, undeniably, hers. Nobody could take it. Nobody could erase her name from it. Nobody could drug her and steal it while she lay unconscious. The certainty of that ownership felt like breathing for the first time in years. She dove into work with the focused intensity that had always defined her. 16-hour days building new predictive models. Meetings with clients who valued her expertise without questioning whether she actually possessed it. Pitches to investors who'd seen the news and suddenly understood that Clara Mensah wasn't just brilliant. She was someone who fought back when the world tried to erase her. Min Jae split his time between Atlanta and his operations in Asia, but he called every night. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they just sat on the phone in comfortable silence, two people who'd found something unexpected in each other's wreckage. "I'm coming back to Atlanta this weekend," Min Jae said one Thursday evening. "You don't have to keep flying back and forth. I'm okay." "I know you're okay. I'm coming anyway." "Why?" A pause. "Because I miss you." Clara's chest tightened. "I miss you too." "Good. Then stop trying to convince me to stay away." He hung up before she could argue. Clara sat in her apartment, staring at the phone, and realized something that terrified her. She was falling in love with Kang Min Jae. Not the desperate, consuming love she'd felt for Dominic, the kind that made her ignore red flags and trust blindly. Something quieter, steadier. The kind of love built on witnessing each other's worst moments and choosing to stay anyway. That weekend, Min Jae showed up at her door with groceries and a plan to cook her an actual meal. Clara watched him move through her kitchen with the same efficiency he applied to everything, precise, controlled, competent. "You don't have to take care of me," she said. "I know." "Then why are you?" Min Jae looked up from chopping vegetables. "Because taking care of you doesn't mean I think you're helpless. It means I care enough to make your life easier when I can." Clara felt tears building. "I'm not good at accepting help." "I noticed. It feels like weakness." Min Jae set down the knife and came to stand in front of her. "Accepting help isn't weakness. It's trust. And Clara, after everything you've been through, trusting anyone is probably the bravest thing you could do." She kissed him then, hard and desperate and grateful. When they finally broke apart, Min Jae rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said quietly. "I know it's fast. I know we're both disasters. But I love you, and I needed you to know." Clara's breath caught. "I love you too." "Yeah?" "Yeah." They stood in her kitchen while the vegetables went cold and the future stretched ahead, uncertain and terrifying and somehow possible. 3 months after the courthouse, Dominic's trial began. Clara testified for 6 hours over 2 days, walked the jury through the videos, explained the code she'd written, detailed how Dominic had systematically erased her from Novolux while using her work to build his empire. Dominic sat at the defense table, smaller than ever, while his lawyers tried desperately to mitigate what couldn't be mitigated. On the 3rd day, the prosecution rested. The defense called no witnesses. Because what defense existed for 47 videos showing assault? The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing happened 2 weeks later. The judge handed down 28 years with possibility of parole after 20. Dominic would be 73 years old before he walked free. Clara sat in the gallery while bailiffs led him away and felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, no vindication, just emptiness where hatred used to live. Agent Chen found her outside the courthouse. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know yet." "That's fair." Chen handed her a business card. "That's my personal number. If you ever need anything, testimony for other cases, resources, or just someone who understands what you went through, call me." Clara took the card. "Thank you. For believing me. For building a case that actually held him accountable. You did the hard part. I just helped document it." They shook hands. And Clara walked away from the courthouse for the last time, leaving Dominic Vale's destruction in the rearview mirror. 6 months after the trial, Clara's company signed a major contract with a tech conglomerate that valued her predictive engine at numbers that made her dizzy. Not Novolux numbers, better numbers, because these were built on her name, her reputation, and the understanding that Clara Mensah didn't just survive theft, she rebuilt stronger. The press coverage was extensive. Forbes called her a phoenix rising from Novolux's ashes. TechCrunch wrote a profile about women technologists reclaiming stolen work. NPR did an entire segment on intellectual property theft and the gender dynamics that made it possible. Clara ignored most of it. She'd learned that other people's narratives about her life mattered less than the truth she carried inside herself. Min-jae proposed on a Tuesday. No grand gesture, no elaborate planning. They were sitting in her apartment eating takeout when he set down his chopsticks and pulled a ring from his pocket. "Marry me," he said simply. Clara stared at the ring, a simple platinum band with a single diamond that caught the light. "You're serious?" "Completely. We've known each other less than a year. I've known people my entire life and understood them less than I understand you in 6 months." Clara's hands started shaking. "I'm a mess. I have PTSD from the drugging. I wake up screaming sometimes. I don't trust easily, and I probably never will completely." "I know. And you still want to marry me? Especially because of all that." "Clara, you're the strongest person I've ever met. You survived something that would have destroyed weaker people, and you didn't just survive. You rebuilt yourself into someone even more formidable." He took her hand. "I want to build a life with you, not because you're perfect, because you're real." Clara looked down at their joined hands, thought about trust and violation and the courage it took to let someone close after being hurt so completely. Thought about Minji, this man who'd helped her when he didn't have to, who'd witnessed her worst moments and stayed, who'd built an empire on violence but chose gentleness with her. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay?" "Yes, I'll marry you." Min-jae's smile was the most genuine thing she'd ever seen on his face. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they sat in her apartment eating cold Chinese food while the future, uncertain but chosen, spread ahead like a road they'd build together. They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony in Seoul. Just immediate family, Agent Chen, and a handful of people who'd stood by Clara when the world tried to erase her. Sophia Vale sent a card. Clara almost didn't open it, but Min-jae encouraged her, so she did. Inside was a simple message. "Congratulations. I hope you find all the happiness my father tried to steal from you. S." Clara tucked the card away and didn't respond. Some bridges didn't need rebuilding. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Iceland, glaciers and northern lights, and silence so profound it felt like the world had forgotten they existed. Min-jae showed her parts of himself he'd never revealed to anyone, talked about Ji-yeon in detail for the first time, cried when he described finding her body. Clara held him while he broke and didn't try to fix it because some things couldn't be fixed. They just had to be survived. On their last night in Reykjavik, they stood on a balcony overlooking the city while snow fell in lazy spirals. "Do you regret it?" Min-jae asked quietly. "Regret what?" "Destroying Dominic, taking it as far as you did." Clara thought about it honestly. Thought about the cost, the trauma of watching those videos, the public exposure, the years of therapy she'd need to process what happened. Thought about the benefit, Dominic in prison, her name restored, her company thriving, justice actually served. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret it. It hurt like hell, and I'll carry scars from it forever. But I'm not sorry I fought back." "Good. Do you regret helping me?" Min-jae pulled her closer. "Helping you reminded me that I could be someone other than what my sister's death made me. That power could be used for truth instead of just control." He kissed her temple. "So no, I don't regret a single moment." They stood in the snow while Iceland hummed quietly around them, and the weight of everything they'd survived settled into something bearable. 1 year after Dominic's sentencing, Claire received a letter. Prison mail, institutional stamp, familiar handwriting. She almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. "Clara, I know I have no right to contact you. I know the lawyers would tell me this is stupid, but I'm writing anyway because I need you to know something. I've had a year to sit with what I did, a year to watch the videos the prosecution showed, a year to understand the difference between what I told myself and what actually happened. You were right about everything. I did steal your work, I did drug you, I did systematically erase you from the company we built together, and I told myself it was necessary, that investors wouldn't fund a woman technologist, that I was protecting the company. But the truth is simpler and uglier. I was protecting my ego. Because deep down, I knew you were smarter than me. I knew the engine was yours. I knew that without you, Novolux would never have existed. And instead of celebrating that, instead of being proud to build something with someone that brilliant, I felt threatened. So I erased you, not to protect the company, to protect the story I needed to believe about myself. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I finally understand what I took from you, not just your work or your equity or your reputation, your safety, your trust, your ability to believe that love and violence were separate things. I destroyed all of that because I was too weak to admit I needed you. I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't undo the damage, but it's true. I hope you've built something beautiful without me. I hope you've found someone who celebrates your brilliance instead of fearing it. I hope you're happy. Dominic. Clara read the letter 3 times. Then she pulled out her phone and called Min Jae. Dominic wrote me. A pause. What did he say? Clara summarized the letter. Another pause, longer this time. How do you feel? I don't know. Part of me wants to believe he actually understands what he did. Part of me thinks this is just another manipulation. Both can be true. Clara looked down at the letter. Should I write back? Do you want to? She thought about it, thought about closure and forgiveness and whether either actually required communication. No, she said finally. I don't think I do. He said what he needed to say. I don't owe him a response. Then don't give him one. Clara folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Not thrown away. Just set aside. Evidence of something that happened but no longer controlled her. 2 years after the trial, Clara launched a foundation. The Mensa Foundation for Women in Technology provided funding, legal support, and mentorship for women whose intellectual property had been stolen by partners, employers, or co-founders. The first year, they helped 37 women reclaim their work. The second year, over 100. By year 5, the foundation had offices in 12 countries and had helped over 1,000 women fight back against theft that would have destroyed them a decade earlier. Clara ran it alongside her company, working 100-hour weeks that Min Jae constantly worried about. You're going to burn out, he said one evening. I'm fine. You're running 2 companies, Clara. You're allowed to slow down. I'll slow down when there are no more women whose work is being stolen. Min Jae sighed. You're impossible. You married me anyway. That I did. He pulled her away from her laptop and into his arms. Take tomorrow off. Spend it with me. I have meetings. Reschedule them. Clara started to argue, then stopped. Because Min Jae was right. She'd spent so many years fighting that she'd forgotten how to simply live. Okay, she said. Tomorrow, just us. They spent the next day in bed, talking and making love and existing in a space where trauma and triumph didn't define them. Just 2 people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something that felt like home. 5 years after Dominic's sentencing, Clara received word that he was up for early parole. The news should have devastated her. Instead, she felt nothing. Just mild curiosity about whether the parole board would actually release him. They didn't. Denied for insufficient demonstration of rehabilitation. He'd serve at least another 5 years. Clara read the notification and closed the email without responding. Dominic Vale's imprisonment wasn't her victory anymore. Her victory was the foundation, her company, her marriage, her ability to wake up without fear most mornings. That was enough. On their 5th anniversary, Min Jae surprised Clara with something unexpected. A small art gallery in Seoul displaying her sister Ji-yeon's original security protocols. He'd spent years tracking down her work, documenting her contributions, building a permanent exhibition that would ensure her name lived on. Clara walked through the gallery with tears streaming down her face. Each display showed Ji-yeon's brilliance, her innovation, her impact. And at the center of the final room was a plaque, in memory of Kang Ji-yeon, whose work revolutionized digital security and whose story reminds us that genius should be celebrated, not stolen. This gallery exists because one woman refused to let theft be the end of the story. Dedicated by Kang Min Jae and Dr. Clara Mensah. Clara turned to her husband with wonder in her eyes. You did this for her. We did this for her. The foundation model, protecting intellectual property, centering women's voices, that was your vision. I just applied it to my sister's legacy. Clara kissed him in the middle of the gallery while visitors walked past, and Ji-yeon's work stood as permanent proof that some stories didn't end with erasure. Sometimes they ended with resurrection. 7 years after the courthouse, Clara sat in her office overlooking Atlanta and realized something profound. She was happy. Not perfectly healed, not undamaged, but genuinely, thoroughly happy. Her company had gone public at a valuation that made Novolux look small. The foundation had helped thousands of women reclaim stolen work. Her marriage was solid. built on honesty and shared trauma and the kind of deep understanding that only came from witnessing each other's worst and choosing to stay anyway. And most importantly, Clara had learned to live without the weight of Dominic's theft defining her. He was just a chapter now, an ugly one, but finished. Her phone buzzed. Message from Min Jae. Coming home early. Miss you. Clara smiled. Miss you too. I'll cook. You can't cook. I'll order takeout and pretend I cooked. Perfect. She set down her phone and looked out over the city that had sheltered her during the years she spent rebuilding. Atlanta hadn't changed much, but Clara had transformed completely. From the woman who got erased to the woman who fought back. From victim to survivor to someone who used her survival to protect others. That evolution hadn't been easy. It had cost her peace, privacy, years of therapy, and the ability to trust without questioning. But it had given her something more valuable. The certainty that she would never again let someone else define her worth. The knowledge that truth mattered more than comfort. The understanding that love without respect was just pretty violence. And the absolute conviction that Clara Mensah, architect, entrepreneur, wife, survivor, was exactly who she was supposed to be. Flawed, scarred, unbreakable. She closed her laptop and headed home to her husband, carrying the weight of everything she'd survived and everything she'd built from those ashes. Dominic Vale had tried to erase her, but Clara Mensah didn't erase. She rebuilt, stronger, fiercer, more herself than ever. And as the Atlanta sun set behind her and the future stretched ahead like an invitation, Clara understood the most important truth of all. Some stories didn't end with revenge or justice or perfect closure. Some stories just ended with survival. And survival, real, messy, imperfect survival, was the only victory that actually lasted. She drove home through evening traffic, past buildings and people and lives that didn't know her story and didn't need to. Because Clara's story wasn't for everyone anymore. It was just for her and the people she chose to share it with. And that, finally, impossibly, beautifully, was enough. Min Jae was waiting when she got home, takeout already ordered, wine already poured. They ate on the couch with bad reality TV playing in the background and his arm around her shoulders. Ordinary, simple, safe. Everything Dominic had tried to steal and failed to destroy. I love you, Clara said quietly. Min Jae kissed her temple. I love you too. And in that moment, surrounded by the life she'd built from nothing but brilliance and stubborn refusal to disappear, Clara Mensah was completely, thoroughly free. Not because Dominic was in prison, not because justice had been served, but because she'd finally learned the difference between winning and surviving. And she'd chosen survival, every single day. Until it became something that looked a lot like happiness.